What can I say? Hey, Gimel.
Yeah.
Hey, kids, what time is it?
It's time for Gezintahait 3.
It is time for Gezintahait 3.
That's what time it is, Oishi.
Can you even hear the drums?
I can't hear anything. I can't hear myself, Oishi. You know how old I am, Oishi?
I mean,
I think everybody else can hear it though.
You can't hear this.
They hear it.
They can hear it. I just can't hear it because I can't hear the guitar either.
Okay,
I'm old,
I
Oishi.
can't hear me fine.
I'm gonna ask the audience, send us in the comments if you can hear the drum.
I just saw the ghost.
There we go.
I seen that goes up and down, up and down. The story tonight is about Parshas Vayikra in the Torah. It says he called to Moshe. And in that word that he called, the final aleph is a small aleph. There's in the Torah, there's medium letters. Almost all the letters are medium. Some are big and some are small. And the aleph in Vayikra is a small aleph. When the Tzemach Tzedek first attended Cheder when he was a little kid of 4 or 5 years old, he asked his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, why the aleph in your Vayikra was small. The Alter Rebbe answered that the aleph in Adam, the first man, when it's talking about Adam in the beginning of the Torah, the first man, it was a big aleph to indicate that he had great talents and powers. Why? Because he was made by Hashem. Unfortunately, his awareness of his superior level caused him to sin. Moshe Rabbeinu, on the other hand, knew his own greatness, but that knowledge did not cause him to be haughty. Actually, it made him feel humble and small. Moshe realized that if another Jew had his talents, he could be even greater. After explaining the aleph in Adam's name was big, the Alter Rebbe answered the young future Rebbe by saying the small aleph in Vayikra hints to Moshe's humility. A Rebbe asked a question. It would have been sufficient to say that the small aleph in Vayikra indicates Moshe's humility. Why did the Alter Rebbe have to mention that Adam, in answering the child's question, that Adam had a big aleph and he came to sin because he was haughty? What's necessary there? He could have answered the kid by saying the small aleph in the Vayikra showed on Moshe's humility. You hear the question? You got the question?
I think so.
Okay. One possible response, an answer to the question, is that Alter Rebbe was not trying to explain just the wording, but he wanted to teach his grandson a lesson in serving Hashem. The lesson required first explaining that the large aleph, like in Adam, the first man, indicates that one must recognize his own talents and greatness, just like Adam did. In keeping with the Hasidic saying, just like one needs to know what he lacks, he also needs to know his positive qualities. But in reckoning his superior qualities, a person must realize that those qualities derive from his soul and the merits of his forefathers. What he should recognize he's great, every person. But what does his greatness come from? Because he has a godly soul. And he has the merits of his forefathers. Understanding that any greatness he possesses is not his own, and therefore he will not feel arrogant. He will realize what he possesses is because he has a godly soul and the merits of his forefathers. The teaching of the Alter Rebbe to the Tzemach Tzedek can be applied to everyone. All of us have inherited talents and powers that we need to recognize. If not, when it comes to doing a mitzvah, we could think, who am I? What am I? To think that I am great enough to serve Hashem in this awesome and holy manner. Therefore, we're told you are similar to Adam before the sin. And no matter what your standing is at this point, you have to conduct yourself as if you are higher than any connection to sin, because your soul is holy. Knowing one's own greatness is part of godly service. We have to know how great we are. We have to know we have a godly soul. We have to know that our forefathers were chosen by Hashem and the beginning of it. Yet, it must be coupled with the knowledge that if someone else was endowed with the same great quality, he would be greater than us. The Tzemach Tzedek related that on his first Rosh Hashanah in this world, he was a baby. His grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, delivered the discourse. Mashbi'im maso, they make him swear an oath. Before descending to the world, a soul is administered an oath. Be righteous and don't be wicked. And the discourse that he said later became the first 3 chapters of the Talmud. This mimer that the Rebbe said on the first Rosh Hashanah when the Tzemach Tzedek was alive. The first part of that discourse later became chapter 1 of Tanya and referred to the 4 levels of Torah interpretation, known as Pardes. The simple interpretation, the hinted interpretation, the midrashic interpretation, and the Kabbalah interpretation. All 4 levels are included in the 5th level of the Torah interpretation. You want to guess what that might be, Gimel Aleph? What's the 5th level?
What's the 5th level?
You have Pshat, the simple,
and Drush,
and hinted,
Remes,
Drush,
and Drush,
and Sod. It spells Pardes.
Pardes, yeah.
That's the 4 levels. And what's the 5th level of Torah interpretation?
Musar.
Chassidus, almost. You're so close.
Very close. Through the administration of that initial oath, the soul of the Tzemach Tzedek was satiated. The word oath could be translated as satiated with Torah to the point that he would become a Rebbe who unified Chassidus and Kabbalah with the revealed Torah and Jewish philosophy. He also gave authoritative opinions in Jewish law in response to inquiries from rabbis around the world. In addition, he defended traditional Jewish education at hostile government conferences to the point of putting his freedom and even his life at risk. And given all these revealed powers and talents, he needed to know the lesson that the Alter Rebbe taught him, that the way to avoid feeling as a result of haughtiness is by following the first Rebbe, Moshe Rabbeinu, who utilized the small aleph, the power of humility. And Gimel Aleph's name is almost Aleph.
Almost.
Almost.
It's an aleph with a bunch of zeros.
An Aleph with zeros. So
Yeah.
do we have a
Bitzalel, he was a very cute baby.
Who, Gimel
Oh
Aleph?
no, his first Rosh Hashanah, you said. He was like, I was there, Haishi. Oh, by the way, Haishi, first of all, our friend Omak is watching. Hello, Omak, it's nice. Thanks for being with us here. And also, Haishi, you'll be happy to know that Omak said he can hear everybody good. He can hear the drums good.
Oh, Omek says he can hear the
He can
drum.
hear the
Want to
drums.
listen.
You know why, Haishi? Because look over here. You see the microphone is much closer to you than it is to them. Okay, are we ready? Late. Fragi Mohammed Anigin.
Yeah, I did hear.
Okay. Hey, what time out? I have to 1 second. I might have to sneeze. I'm not sure.
Sneeze in the middle, no?
Okay, ready? Hey, oh, I did it in, oh, I did it in, I did it, I did it, I oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I did it, hey, did it, oh, I did it, I did it, hey, oh, you done it, oh, bam, 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 oh, you hey, it, oh, bam, 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 bam. Hey, it's not in Lado, I'm not in Mamaido. Oh, you hate it, oh, I know. Aha, oh, yeah. Oh, I did my oh, I did my hey, hey, yo, nadi do I am, hey, yo, I did it, 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 hey, yo, I did it, I did it, I did it, hey, did it, I did it, hey, yo, nadi do I am, bam, bam, I hate it, I am, yeah. Oh, you know, I not in name, I am, magnetic, hey, oh, hey, la did it, la did it, la did it, hey, 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 oh, I did it, magnetic,
Okay, so we're going to continue with our explanation of how Hashem creates the world from nothing. And with this, we'll answer the questions of the philosophers. Remember the two questions of the philosophers?
Well, one of them is how could it not change him? Was that the first question or the second
that's
question?
the second one.
Every cause has an effect.
No,
What was the first one?
The first one is how can an unlimited thing
Make a limited
make a
void.
limited
Yeah.
thing?
And then once he makes it, the second question, once he makes a limited
How
thing,
is it
how
he
could it be
doesn't
that he
change?
remains infinite and it doesn't change? Yeah,
And
I
with
remember
this,
it. Sally.
we'll answer the question of the philosophers, because there is no change in Hashem from before the creation to after the creation. Why? Because everything is done through a ray. And that ray takes no place in the essence of the light. like the ray of the sun as it's included in the flame of the sun. Like the ray of the sun does not exist in the flame or affect any changes.
In other words, we're saying when the ray comes down, and like you were saying last time, when it make an egg on the sidewalk, so this doesn't affect the sun for sure, yeah? Something like
Yeah,
this.
the sun doesn't change from that. So even though there is a light and a ray, and that light and the ray is from the essence of the light, like from the flame of the sun, but the essence of the light is not completely grasped in the ray, allowing him to do other actions at the same time, to emanate hundreds of millions of other worlds, if that was his desire. Only he desired only the worlds that exist in their existing number, which is basically 4 worlds. And the proof is that even as things exist now, we see Hashem can do 2 opposites at once. Like at midnight, he cured the Jews and he killed the firstborn of Egypt.
Meaning at the same time, he did the
At the
opposite
same
actions.
instant. And he never changed. Or even the ray of the sun can blind one who looks directly at it, but brings light to a dwelling through a window. And the sun itself never changed. If somebody looks straight at the sun for long enough,
Then
it's
it's
going to get
hateful,
blind.
yeah.
At the same time, the sun can shine into a window. And in both instances, the sun never changes. So too, Hashem never changes in doing the action of creation of the world, because he does it something from nothing.
Here's the Frage. The sun can hurt your eyes, while at the same time it's powering some guy's Prius to drive 2 miles an hour.
So even though he's causing the action of the ray, at the same time, he's completely separate and removed from it, just as he was before emanating this ray, with no change at all. Like maybe when I see someone in a telescope, they don't change at all through my look. And they can even be doing something else. My seeing them doesn't affect them.
And if 20 people looking at a telescope, to them, it's also the same thing.
Or if you see a guy, there's an actor in a movie.
Right? No matter
At the
how many
time
people
you
watching
see-
this thing, it
At
doesn't
the
make
time you're seeing the guy, he could be doing something else at the same time, and he doesn't change. It's always him. Pretty
Here's Toishi. That's pretty amazing, no?
fancy stuff. Therefore, the one who projects the ray can be doing other things at the time. So it's understood that with all the many effects of the ray, lights up 1,000,000 houses, cooks an egg on the sidewalk, gives a guy a suntan, grows a tree, the one who projects it doesn't change and retains separateness from all these actions. And that answers the second question of the philosopher. How is it that after there's worlds, how is it that Hashem doesn't change? Because it's all done through a way. And the answer to the first question, which is, how can limited created by the unlimited? How can the unlimited make a limited thing? The creation is done through a contraction and a hiding of the unlimited, which causes a gap or a jump from the unlimited to allow a completely new flow, which is a limited flow, called a reflected light, a aura, an outshine. Not similar to an actor in the act, like a guy who throws a stone, because by us, every act is limited. The actor and the act are both limited, but the godly actor is unlimited.
So is that why that allegory is only good for one side of things? like that, because this mashal is about like when a person throws a stone, you can see the stone, but you don't realize who the thrower is. At the same time, it's not a full allegory because of like you said, is it can only throw one stone at a time, this guy.
Right. Right, correct. You can only throw one stone at a time. And Hashem can throw a stone and he can pull it back at the same time he's throwing. I didn't see a source for this, but it asks a question: can Hashem make a stone that he can't pick up? And the Rebbe says, yes, he can, and he could pick it up.
And he could pick it up too.
So how do we see it? Hashem makes a mitzvah, and he can't do the mitzvah. So he makes a stone he can't pick up.
Because only he made it, only we can pick up that stone.
He can't pick it up. He can't do the mitzvah. We have to do it.
But the ironic thing is
when
we can
we
pick
do
up
it-
that stone.
It's all here, but when I put on tefillin, Hashem put it on tefillin too.
Yeah, correct.
Drums.
But he can't do it down here in the physical world. And when you do it in the physical world, then he does it.
You're saying Hashem can't do something?
Yeah, he does it like that. He makes it like that.
Because he made it that way, so he couldn't do it. If he wants, he can do it, but he doesn't want. But he wants, he shouldn't do it. And why late? Because he wants not only he should throw a stone, he wants you should be stoned. But with your tefillin, you put the tefillin on, and you have an outer body experience, and you will come close to Hashem, and you get a little bit further away from your own gashmis.
Whoa.
Heavy stuff, Mitzvah.
Stop there, Gimel Ella. But on high, since Hashem is infinite, not just in the limited sense of infinity of only infinite outspread, like the philosophers imagine what infinite means, but infinite in the sense of also being able to hide and pull back his infinite expansion. And it's called Kol Yochel. He could do whatever he wants. And understanding this will allow us to grasp the unity of Hashem with the light that fills our world. At first glance, the light that fills our world is a limited light. How could that be unified with an unlimited Hashem? And the light that fills our world is limited to the world. Nevertheless, that light is only limited by the one who emanates that limited flow, who is infinite. So it's Hashem that's hiding himself, allowing a dribbles of light to come down into this world. It's him that hides himself to allow and bring out the limited revelation. Therefore, the infilling lights, you know what infilling lights? Each world is limited. And there's a godly light that enlivens it. And that light that enlivens it is not infinite, it's a limited light. But that limited light is from Hashem himself, from the unlimited. Therefore, the infilling light's real being is the essence of the light itself. And this is a third explanation of nothing to something. You have a question? First, there is a ray which is non-existent, it's a nothing in the flame of the sun. Second, the ray itself, since it's a ray of infinite light, must be completely hidden and contracted to allow a limited existence. It's what we called last week, the emptiness of the light, the Rakunias or. 3, the limited existence is really from the true nothing, from Hashem himself. That's what Hashem wants, a limited existence. The ineffable, ungraspable, nothing of Hashem himself, who no thought can grasp, even the highest supernal emanations, even the first thought of Adam Kadmon can not grasp Hashem and understand him.
Hey, Gidon, we was just talking about the Adam Kadmon yesterday. Remember in the Likutei Torah, we was talking about the Adam Kadmon.
And in this
So was that this morning?
Oh,
is
sorry,
the
this
final
morning.
analysis. It is he himself who creates and enlivens the creation. And that's the meaning of Havaya is Elohim. Remember we said Havaya is Elohim in the heavens above and the earth below. It's all Hashem. Havaya indicates Hashem himself and his infinite being and all-encompassing ability, while Elohim indicates the level where he hides himself in order to allow a separate creation. And it's all one, like it says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Hashem Elokeinu. And up
So
to
meaning
here,
what, that all these other things of how Hashem expresses himself, it's just to make it to make a world, but still really it's not that really he's limited. It's just he's presenting himself in this limited way, something like this.
something like that. Like when you tell a little kid the Torah that Moshe commanded us as a inheritance of the people of Jacob, you think the guy who's teaching that to the kid doesn't know that Hashem took us out of Egypt and took us in the desert for 49 days till we got to Har Sinai. He knows the whole story, but he limits it enough that this kid could get it. Up to here, we have the metaphor of the sun and its ray. Now we're going to have the metaphor of a niggun
Okay.
to express our happiness with Hashem.
What nigga are we doing, Snaggy?
How about the circle stone?
Oh, okay. Wait, how's it go again? Okay, ready? Okay, Mordechai, let's bind this one.
Bind
In
it
a
up.
good way. Hey, ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Did I, ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Ah, did I, ay, ay, hey, ay, ay, did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Did I, ay, 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 did I yam? Ay, 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 did I yam? Hey, ay, did I yam? Ah, did I, ay, ay, hey, ay, da, did I, la, la, ay, 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 hey, ay, did I, ay, ay, hey, ay, yam, hey, da, did I, ay, yam, ay, 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 yam, hey, ay, did I, yam, hey, ay, yam, ah, ho, ho, hey, 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 ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, hey, ay, ay, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, hey, hey, ay, 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 yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 hey, da, did I, yam, hey, da, did I, la, la, ay, 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 yam, hey, ay, did I, la, la, oh, ay, ay, hey, da, did I, la, la, ay, 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 yam, hey, oh, did I, la, hey, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ah, did I, ay, 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 yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, did I, ay, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, did I, ay, 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 yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, ay, ay, did I, yam, hey, ay, did I, yam, ah, did I, ay, oy, hey, oy, did I, la, la, ay, 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 yam, hey, oh, did I, yam, hey, ay, ay, oy, hey, da, did I, ay, yam, ay, 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 yam, hey, oh, did I, yam, hey, ay, oy, hey, oy, oy, hey, da, ay, ay, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 hey, da, did I, yam, ah, 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 hey, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 did I, yam, ay, 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 hey, do, did I, lam, hey, yo, did I, did I, do, did I, yam, bam, bam, hey, yo, did I, do, ah, bam, bam, yo, hey, yo, ah, did I, do, ay, 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 yam, ah, I do, Hey, yo, did I, ya. Oh, yo, yo,
All right. Okay, so far we had the metaphor of the sun and its ray. But the metaphor of a sun and its ray will not be enough to accomplish the godly action, to encompass the godly action of creating something from nothing. The sun does not enliven, it only shines on it. But Hashem enlivens the world. So we need another metaphor. And that metaphor will be how the soul enlivens a body.
So in other words, you're saying that because the sun, it's a good allegory in one way.
Because the
it
sun
shows-
doesn't change, but it does
and
a whole
so
bunch
it's good
of
for
work.
that aspect. But when it comes to, but really, it's not sufficient because the sun is, it can shine on things and it can make them warm a little bit, but the sun doesn't go into a body to make it jump around and sing again.
Right.
Okay,
Now,
got it.
there are three more metaphors. One is the light of a candle. Then how the soul enlivens the body. And the power of the actor in the act, like a guy who throws a stone.
So gesund, Frage.
Like we said, there are three dynamics in concept, encompassed in the concept of the godly light that fills all worlds. There is light, life, and potential. So light is going to be the light of the sun, and life will be how the soul enlivens the body, and potential will be the power of the actor in the act. The aspect of light contains two manifestations. The light that encompasses and surrounds all worlds, how godliness surrounds all the worlds, and then the light that fills all worlds. We see that the light of the sun only shines on the earth. It only shines. It does not penetrate to combine with the four categories of creation: the inorganic, growing stuff, animal stuff which moves around, and people who are speakers. The sun does not combine with them, it only shines on them. And this is because, like the Rambam says, that the stars are spiritual bodies, and they have no taste and smell. They're a fifth category of creation. They're not inorganic, growing animal that moves around and speakers. They're a fifth category spiritual thing that has no taste and smell.
Bitzalel, that is like parallels what you said before about pardes, that there's the four, and then there's a fifth
And there's the
category.
fifth, exactly. Now, these spiritual bodies, means the stars, emit a physical light. What we perceive as light. But that light is only called physical in comparison to its source in the star itself. But it is really spiritual compared to the fourth categories of creatures, and therefore does not combine with them. So the light from a sun or the star, for example, comes from a spiritual source and becomes a physical light. But even that physical light is spiritual compared to the stuff that it shines on. That's why it can only shine on them. It can't go into them to combine with them. But through its shine and the power of sight can see them, so we can see these creations through the shine. So the ray of the sun shines from up to down, a dynamic called a straight light.
Why is it called a straight
Like
light?
when you turn on a flashlight, the light goes from the flashlight straight to where it's going.
Yeah.
It's not a rebounded light, which is how the light bounces off the thing you're looking for. It's a straight light. Not so the light of a candle. That's the light of the sun is a straight light. It starts and it goes down. Not so the light of a candle, which is drawn from the fire element of fire, which is one of the elements of the physical world, fire, air, earth, and water.
It's under the moon.
Now, even though it's the most spiritual of all those elements, fire is the most spiritual of earth, air, and water, it's still one of the physical elements, and therefore it can combine with them. In other words, fire can combine with oil and a wick to make a light.
So this is because even though it's a higher type of element, but it's still an element that's a physical
It's
element.
one of the four. For example, by fire combining with a wick and oil, light is produced, and according to how much oil there is how long the light will shine. And this light is called a rebounded or returning light. It's not a straight light because it's coming from the physical and shining up, as opposed to the light of the sun, which is called a straight light, which shines from up to down. But this rebounded light has a superiority. And the superiority is, for example, when I'm looking for something with a flashlight, the light shines from the flashlight and it hits the thing I'm looking for. And that light rebounds to not to the beginning of the flashlight, it rebounds to me. I get nachas from finding the thing I'm looking for.
So what's interesting too, Bezalel, is if I'm holding a flashlight and I'm pointing it at something, you could be standing behind me and you'll still see the thing.
Oh, I never thought of that. We'll have to put that into the equation, Gamal. Thank you. Do you have a source for that?
Well, no, I just seen it with my eyeballs one time. I was
Okay.
holding a flashlight and everybody behind me could see the thing that I was pointing at. It was disappointing. I was trying to hide it from them and just look at myself on this thing. And
But
it turns
both,
out everybody can see it.
but both of these things, the straight light, the light of the sun that shines down, and the rebounded light, the light of the candle that shines up, are only light, and they do not enliven anything. They just shine so you can see it. But the life of the body from the soul, through its flow into the limbs, how the soul flows the life into the limbs of the body, actually enlivens that body and those limbs. Light does not unify with that on which it shines. It only shines on it. Like when candlelight illuminates a room, it makes no change in the physicality of the room. It just shows you what's in there. And the light does not change from its spirituality. So this manifestation of energy is designated only as shining in the room. It doesn't enliven the room. It doesn't bring anything to life. Not so when the soul enlivens a body. Where's the body? Not so when the soul enlivens a body, it unifies with the limbs of the body, and each one according to its particular function. The soul, how it goes into the eyes, allows the person to see, and how it goes into the brain allows the person to think, and how it goes into the heart allows the person to feel, and how it goes into the hands allows the person to move.
Right? It's not just revealing the hand, it's making the hand come alive.
Therefore, the life force of the soul changes from a spiritual life to giving life to physicality. And the limbs change from being not enlivened to being enlivened from the life force of the soul that's now enlivening them. And the light of life comes into the limbs in levels, each one according to its function, like we said. Not so the outspread of light, not so with light, which shines equally. The way the light comes into the particular limbs is called a way of ingress. So the light of the soul comes into each limb of the body in a specific way. It's called an ingress is in the body, as opposed to light which just shines and surrounds the person.
You mean like for example, how the neshama goes when it goes into the eyeballs, it becomes a power of sight, and the hand, the power of movement, and like
That's
this.
exactly right. where light is just, it shows the thing and reveals. But the level of enlivenment, even though it's felt in the particular limbs, nevertheless, it's a simple light. The nose is alive like the toes is alive. Everything is alive, even though the light goes in each one. They all feel alive from the soul that enlivens them. The toes and the nose are equally alive. Now, moving to the metaphor of power or potential, the power of the actor in the act. Not so the particular powers like the power of movement in the hand. That's not all equal. That's a particular power in which the general life is contracted. So in that, the general life of the body is contracted into the hand. So you have the general life where the soul, the nose and the toes are equally alive.
Yeah, even if it's inside the bongos, the nose is still alive.
Yeah, I think you're right. So you see that the power of life can be contracted to give the power to the individual limb to do its function.
But the levels of the soul that enliven the body, there's mental, there's what,
There's two different ways. One that enlivens the body in general.
there's 5 different levels of the soul, right?
Yeah, correct.
So the Yechido would be it's like all a metaphor for Tzimtzum, you know. It's really the
Well, but we
Simply
had when
when
we
the soul comes into a body,
when
it's
we
how the light.
explained light, we explained that there has to be a tzimtzum, because the light is infinite, and to be able to enliven, to shine on limited worlds, it needs to be contracted. Now, you're right, there's a contraction here also. The contraction of the power of soul to enliven, you're correct. And it's two different things. One way, there's the level the soul surrounds the body and enlivens them equally. And another way, it goes into the individual limbs. And it could be, I don't know if we got to it yet, that the power of enlivening it equally will be the power of ratzon, the power of desire of the soul to enliven the body. And the power of enlivening the individual limbs will come from the power of the brain, how it's in charge and enlivens the individual limbs. So one is a surrounding power of desire of ratzon that the soul has to enliven the body, and the other one is the particular desires to give power to the individual limbs. And the way it will be understood is, for example, how the capillaries bring the blood with the sugar and oxygen into the muscles. So how it brings it into the hand to move, that's the particular power of movement. And how it brings it into the eye to see, that's the particular power of sight. And how those capillaries bring that blood into the brain to think, that's the power of intellect. Some kind of deal like that, I think he'll expand on it. So each limb has a particular power. And these particular powers are manifest through the outer vessels called the capillaries. So in the vessels, there is the inner level of the vessels, the intermediate level of the vessels, and the outer level of the vessels. The inner level of the vessels will be, for example, the nerves. And the intermediate levels of the vessels will be, for example, the pumping vessels. What do they call those? The veins and the arteries. And the outer vessels will be the capillaries. So you have 3 levels of vessels, and each level of vessel will receive a light of enlivenment from the soul to bring a particular power to each particular limb. And we'll be able to see that manifest in the supernal level of how the vessels of Malchus of Atzilus are able to enliven the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And I think he's going to get to it. If he doesn't, we'll come back to it. Do we do a nigga now?
That we can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Well,
Just want to know if you can play. Should I play? You play?
Yo na 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 moje di mama. Te yo na 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 moje di mama. Te yo elara aho yo di mama. Oh, na 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 na, oh yeah, di mama. Te yo na 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 na, oh yeah, di mama. Te yo la da, oh yo yeah, di mama. Te ya oh, ay, ay, yo, ahoy, oh, yeah, dear mama. Shkoyach, Fragi. No, this is a fire. Your fiddle, I will give you a cup of water to put the fiddle out. It was smoking hot. Yasher Koyach. That niggin really fits with that fiddle too, no?
Yeah.
It's just really a good fit. Just like every other niggin is a good fit with that fiddle. Different story.
The voice is the best.
Well, a fiddle has a voice too. Fiddle
Yeah.
has a voice. This is what's nice with fiddles. Fiddles have like a voice.
I think that the way Chassidus explains that the voice is an inner expression of the soul. And an instrument is an outer expression, but the instrument also has a superiority, which it projects further. And in a way, it touches more because of that further progression. Even though the voice is a more inner quality, it doesn't project so far outside.
Yeah, also, another thing is that if an instrument breaks its neck, you just fix it and keep playing. But the person, he breaks his neck, it's not so easy to sing then anymore. This is not from Chassidus B'Tzalel. That's just my own observation.
Seichel puppet the Nushi.
Yeah.
This is Gimel Elif's street shot.
Now, the interesting of soul in the blood is in general a power. It's not a life. It's the idea of the power of the actor in the act. The power of the actor in the act, which is the general hidden power to measure out the particular powers which become revealed. There's a power in the blood of the soul to measure out which particular powers have to come to each limb. Like it says, the dam hu nefesh, the blood is the soul. And it's called nefesh, and it has its seat in the area of the liver. Not so the ruach, the spirit of life, which is called nefesh, which is called ruach, and the seat is in the heart. And that is, in our metaphors, the metaphor of enlivenment, the spirit in the heart, as opposed to the power of the actor in the act, which will be the nefesh that's in the blood. And the highest level of the soul in the body is called neshama and has its seat in the brain. In our metaphors, it's called light. It's an inner light, like the candle. And the surrounding light, the level of chaya, like the light of the sun in our metaphor. So even the metaphor of enlivenment includes the metaphor of light. It's not that the godly action is two separate things. The godly action is one thing. But it includes a bunch of dynamics, and each dynamic that's included in the godly action is described by a certain number of metaphors. So we see that the metaphor of the soul enlivening the body really contains the godly action being explained by all three metaphors. But in how the soul enlivens the body, the metaphor of light is hidden. It's an enlivenment, it's not a shining. So we explain it with the sun and a candle. Isn't that elegant?
That's beautiful, B'Tzalel.
Now, the object of these metaphors in the godly dynamic of the light that fills all worlds are three qualities: light, life, and potential or power. Meaning that malchus, and this is how it works in the supernal world, you have a level called malchus of Atzilus, which means the godly decree that creates and enlivens the world. Malchus means kingship or royalty. And how does royalty work? By making decrees. So too Hashem makes a decree, let there be light. And there was light. And that, who's saying that let there be light? That's the godly level called Malchus. Malchus of Atzilus. The royal attribute of Hashem. The expression of his decree ordering the coming into being of the creation from nothing. And it's called the light that fills all worlds, to enliven them and bring them into being. It's those two things. It creates the worlds from nothing, and it enlivens them.
So in other words, it makes them be, and it also makes them not just be, but be alive.
Yeah. And each one according to its standing in the heavenly and earthly array. Like it says, your kingship is a kingship over all worlds. And also, you enliven all of them. Because when we use the term you in Hebrew, ata, it indicates the level of divine royalty, the level of Malchus. You are the king, you. The first two letters of the word of ata, of you, are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Aleph and Tav.
Aleph and a Saf is the first two letters of the word ata, which includes all speech. Those 22 letters include all speech, which will make up the godly decree of creation. That's how Hashem makes creation, by saying the decrees. And that saying is made up of those 22 letters. While the last letter, Hey, in Ata, indicates the divine breath. The letters themselves don't bring anything and enliven anything. It's really the godly breath, the godly energy that comes into those letters.
So Bitzalel, is that sort of like how, like the decree of a king, right? It's written on this official parchment, and they go and bring it around, and you read the thing, but that's not really the decree. The decree is not, the letters tells you what the decree is, but the decree is not really just the letters, it's the king who put those letters.
Desire that should happen. Build a fence on Murray Avenue. Now, the Hey, which is the divine breath, so to speak, is manifest. The Hey is the letter 5 in Hebrew, the letter 5, through the 5 openings of the mouth. I'm not sure exactly what the art is, the tongue, the teeth, the palate, the throat. There's 5 expressions which bring speech into the world. And that's the source of letters of speech, and that's the Hey. And this level of Malchus enlivens all the creations to the myriad combinations of
I think the lips is the 5th one.
Probably.
The lips, the teeth, the palate, the throat, and the tongue.
Good, very good. And the myriad combinations of 22 letters of the Aleph base is without measure. What do you mean it's without measure? It's only 22 letters. But it adds up finally to 231. If you take an Aleph and a base and an Aleph and a Gimel and a base and an Aleph, the statisticians add it up and they say it's 231. And there's 231 from the front and 231 from the back. And for example, the letter Aleph is spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. So you get 3 more combinations. And each one of those is spelled, that Aleph is spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. And the Lamed is spelled Lamed Mem Dalet. And so you get an unlimited number of combinations, which through those combinations, how Hashem enlivens the unlimited creations in the world.
So it's interesting because he takes something limited and makes something unlimited. Now, you know, it's one thing. I wonder which one is more impressive, Bitzalel. Hashem takes the unlimited and makes something limited out of it, and here he takes something limited and makes out of it something unlimited. He really can't do anything, Bitzalel.
Tzarech Iyun. Now, this Malchus of Atzilus has 2 levels. Any guess what they are? You have Malchus of Atzilus as it is in the supernal world of Atzilus, where it's completely unified with Hashem. After all, it's his power of speech. And then you have Malchus of Atzilus as it becomes the Kesser or the crown of the created worlds. That from that speech, worlds are created and.
So is this sort of like how there's the decree of the king, the way it is by the king and how it is by the people, something like this?
Well, it's how the people and the creations come into being. One is completely higher than having anything to do with creation, it's just going up and up and up into God. And the second one is how it becomes manifest in bringing the creations into light. One, like it's in Atzilus, and it's separate from enlivening creations and bring them into being. And the second level, it descends to become the crown of the created worlds, which descent is brought about through a curtain which separates the godly world of Atzilus and the created separate worlds. It says your kingship, which is Malchus in the world of Atzilus, is a kingship over all worlds. Malchus is the king of all worlds. And the descent of Malchus to be the crown of creation, to bring the worlds into being from nothing and enliven them. Like we say, your name is exalted. That's how Malchus is in the world of Atzilus. Exalted from the creations, and only a ray shines on the heaven and earth, which is a reflection of Malchus, which creates and enlivens the creations. I guess we could have now a niggin.
Okay, what were you doing, Chavre?
Sure.
What do you feel like doing?
Where do you go, sir?
Morty's ready to run. You tell
What
him
we
which
got?
direction and how fast. He's going. Is there any seltzer water in that bottle there, Mendel?
Ah. Nice singing there.
That wasn't a performance. That was for you. That was
great. That was that wasn't a performance. That was the actual niggin.
That was absolutely fabulous. Thank you, William.
That was the actual niggin.
Mordechai, beautiful. Thank you.
It was the actual niggin.
Okay, I'm ready for the sign off too, unless you have an appeal over there.
An appeal. Yes, an appeal. Hell, everybody, time out. Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. Chavre, I want you to know that now it's already tomorrow night going to be Reish Chodesh Nisan, the month of the Geula, the month of our redemption. Chavre, the redemption is something that happens to us, literally Hashem taking us out of Galus. He's taking us out of exile. And he asks us, I'm taking you out of exile. I need you to do something too, and something that's good for you. And this is, make sure that you get some matzah. It's going to be Pesach in 2 weeks. Make sure you have a matzah. If you don't know where to find matzah, you can go to chabad.org, chabad.org, chabad.org. Look up a Chabad house near you. Look up a shliach near you, and you can email them. And they're very fancy nowadays. They have with email, with text, with also with numbers, with computers. You can call them or email them and tell them you need matzah, and they will help you get matzah. It's a very big thing because the matzah that we eat is part of our going out of Golus, out of exile, and going into the Geula. May we, the redemption, may we all celebrate this year. May we make the Korban Pesach, the Paschal sacrifice with Mashiach Tzidkenu in the Beis HaMikdash Hashlishi, the Holy Temple, right now.
All right. Thank you.
Gezintahait,
Thank you.